The Splatoon manga is amazing. If you're a Splatoon fan and you played the original on release, or just now starting to get into it, the Splatoon manga is by fans for fans. If you're a Splatoon fan in any way, you're gonna like the manga. It's not a case of if you're gonna like the manga, you're gonna like the manga. But before we talk about the manga, what is a Splatoon manga? Well, the manga is created by... I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. And it takes place in the Splatoon universe. Unfortunately, none of it is canon, which makes me sad. Where we follow the adventures of Team Blue, comprised of Bobble Hat, Goggles, Headphones, and Specs. Specs is also the team leader, even though Goggles gets all the spotlight. But the best part about these characters is they all reuse in-game items, actual in-game items, which means you can actually roleplay as the characters in the game. In fact, at the end of each book, there's this thing called the Inkling Almanac, where it shows what gear and what weapons the character used in the book. Not only the main characters, but also the side characters. Heck, even the characters that get like 1 second of screen time, all their gear and stats and equipment is shown. Which I think just shows a dedication to the source material, i.e. the game. But enough about our main cast, let's talk about the books themselves and the adventures they go on. There are currently 16 books, but only 14 of them are in English, so I'll be focusing on those. Books 1 and 2 take place in Splatoon 1, and books 3 through 14 take place in Splatoon 2. Okay, so from this point on, there will be heavy spoilers. So if you haven't read the manga yet and don't want to be spoiled, just read it. It's really good. I would also recommend adding a D-pants counter. You know, something to count how many times a character gets D-pantsed or pantsed. It'll make sense when you read it, just trust me. At the end of every book, there is a bonus manga which reveals some kind of backstory. In fact, the bonus manga for Book 1 explains what a turf war is and how it works. And in this bonus manga, we follow a predecessor of Team Blue, or like an unfinished version of Team Blue. But in the almanac for the bonus manga, yes, even the bonus mangas have their own almanac. It is revealed that some of the weapon kits they use aren't actual real weapon kits. And in the actual story, the author decided to change this for actual in-game kits. It's the little details that I really like. Anyway, enough ranting over that. What are some of the stories that the characters go on, or arcs that we go on? Well, the first arc is the Koro Cup arc. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. This arc is more or less as an introduction to the series as a whole. It's not to say it's bad. This arc has some of the best characters in it. You know, Ryder and the S4, and oh, while we're on the S4, let's talk about them. So, the S4, Army, Aloha, Mask, and Skull. These are the characters that Team Blue defeats in the arc. But how would I describe them personality-wise? Well, in order to do that, I have to do it before and after they get defeated. Aloha can only be described as...
It's a lovely day to walk down the road, and if I ever stop singing, I will explode.
Hey, Steven!
What have you done?
Yeah, his personality doesn't really change after he gets defeated, but I don't know. I may be wrong about that. Someone who does have a change of personality after he gets defeated is Skull! Hopefully. Skull, before he gets defeated, is described as extremely cold and distant. But after he gets defeated, well...
How did I get here? The end.
Yeah, especially in some of the later books where he just appears in places where he should not be. Next is... who's next? Army. That's right, Army. Army is... he's one of my favorite characters because he's just so straightforward. He's the most by-the-book guy you can have, or you can get. Army and his team, they study their opponent. They write it down in these so-called manuals. And these manuals, from what he says, has every battle tactic possible. There's no way of tricking him. That is until someone decides to eat curry mid-battle. And when this happens, Army is completely confused. He has no idea what to do. He's never seen this before. He just has no idea how to respond. He and his team are just flipping through his manuals, looking for something to do. And, you know, Team Blue takes this advantage. They take the opening, and they win. They come out the battle with a W. Meanwhile, Army is completely baffled at what just happened and starts writing curry as a battle plan. No joke. He starts taking lessons from what he just saw and sees how he can implement it in his own tactics. And from that point on, Army becomes I don't want to say he becomes obsessed with curry, but it's really the only way I can describe it. He basically does become obsessed with curry. Instead of writing battle plans into manuals, he writes curry recipes. And now he just makes curry, that's it. Whether it's a fall from grace or not, that's really for you to decide. Anyway, moving on. Last but not least, Mask. The Splatoon Wiki describes Mask as stubborn at times and doesn't like it when people are happy. This is very true. I almost want to say he's goth, but I may be using that meaning wrong. But he really doesn't like it when people are happy. I mean, just look at one of his quotes. I absolutely hate Inklings who enjoy life like you guys. It's not just him like that, but his entire team is like that. In fact, when they lose against Team Blue, they're just confused on how they lost a team that enjoys life. They're just confused about it. It's like Mask and his team are going through some type of mental breakdown. Jeez, Goggles, what did you do to these people? It was only a 3-minute battle. So, that's some of the stuff from the Kuro Cup arc. I have no idea if I'm still saying that right or not, but that's some of the stuff. I just feel like I had to talk about some of these characters since they are recurring. They will be seen in previous books. Let's see what's next. The Square King Cup arc. The Square King Cup arc is one of my favorites because it goes for a more tournament-style turf war. That and the new characters we meet are Gloves and fan-favorite Emperor. More on that in a little bit, but let's talk about Gloves first. There are also a whole bunch of side characters or side teams that get showed off during the brackets for Team Blue to move up, but I won't be talking about those because they're just not recurring enough. So, Gloves. No, not those gloves, the other Gloves. Thank you. Gloves is... well, he tries to be cool. He tries to stay on the latest trend. You know, if there's a trend going on, he's the guy to talk to. But when his hair comes off, which yes, for some reason does happen, when it does come off, he basically starts to panic. Then all of a sudden he thinks he's not fresh anymore. Keep in mind that this is from a guy who says, quote, I'll be the coolest. So yeah, Gloves. Not the worst character in my opinion, but not my favorite. Someone who is a fan favorite, though, at least from what I know, is the Emperor! The Emperor, where do I begin? I don't know where to start. He is well known for getting a 99.9% in Turf War and never known to step in enemy ink. That right there should tell you who we're dealing with. Just to give you an idea of how strong he is, he defeats the S4 and says that was relatively enjoyable. In fact, the only team that gives him a run for his money, besides Blue Team, is Green-Yellow. You know, Ryder's team. But all they were able to do with him is dirty up his shoe sole. That's it. His personality fits him too. He's very prideful and cocky, even calling lesser players peasants. Of course, that was before the fight with Blue Team. After, he leaves on a journey of self-growth and the train, while leaving Prince, his younger brother, probably should have mentioned that earlier, in charge of the team. Since then, he's become more of a funny man, but still refers to himself as King. So yeah, that's a little bit of Emperor. Okay, that's the Square King Cup arc done. What next? The Octo arc. The Octo arc. Well, it's basically just Octo expansion but with Splatoon manga characters. In this arc, we do meet 8, not Agent 8, just 8. They're 2 different characters. And over the course of this arc, 8 remembers why he's here, which is to save her friend 7. Besides that, it doesn't really differ from the actual Octo expansion. Tartar's still here and tries to take over the world. The 2 other differences is that the entirety of Team Blue eventually comes to help Goggles, and Ryder is Agent 3. Besides that, nothing else changes between this and the DLC. Next up, we have the Square King Rank Cup arc. It's structured the same way as the Square King Cup arc, but instead of Turf War, it's ranked. Our main protagonist in this arc is Vintage. And jeez, where do I start with him? He is who I believe the most powerful protagonist in the manga. Leader of Team X Blood, they are all X rank. He seems to disapprove of anyone lower than rank X, calling them trash, so basically every top 500 player. Why do I think he's the strongest? Well, for one, he has an ability that lets him sense the other players' movements, known as X Blood. Second is the fact that he beats Team New Emperor 0 to 20. But I know what you're saying. If he's so strong, how come that's not a KO? Well, that's because he didn't bother with a KO. In fact, as soon as his team scores, he already knows he's won the battle. For the rest of the game, he's just by his basket defending it. Next, they fight Team Gloves, and while that goes a little worse for them, it doesn't go that bad. Okay, that's that arc done. I know I'm just talking about the characters in the arcs, but I feel like the characters are the best part of the arc. That, and this video is way longer than I thought it would be, and there's still stuff I actually want to talk about. Next, we have the Hero Mode arc. This arc has two parts. Part 1 takes place in Splatoon 1, and Part 2 takes place in Splatoon 2. The arcs as a whole are just Splatoon story modes, but with Splatoon manga characters. That's really it. Personally, I think it's the least interesting out of all the arcs. The only thing really worth talking about is in Part 1, Goggles is accompanied by a Rider, and in Part 2, Goggles is accompanied by Gloves. But that's really just it. Last but not least, the Adventures of Sheldon arc. In this arc, Sheldon finds a treasure map written by his grandfather, Amino Schellendorf, I think? Sheldon decides to bring Goggles along for the adventure, and together they head to Mount Natai, where the treasure is located. There they find guardians that test them in order to get the 3 parts of the key to unlock the treasure. These guardians are, in order, Fierce Fish Skull, Jet Flame Crest, and Eye of Justice. The first guardian that Goggles fight is Fierce Fish Skull. And he is incredibly strong. Like, you know how with Booyah Bomb it causes you to rise in the air? When he uses Booyah Bomb, he grabs the ground and doesn't rise up. Like, the amount of strength that needs is just insane. At least, I think it's Booyah Bomb. The manga just says Bomb, but I'm pretty sure it's Booyah Bomb. Might be a translation issue. Fierce is wild, aggressive, and incredibly strong. No kidding. He is kind-hearted, though, once you get to know him. Next, we have Jet Flame. Jet is more serious and well-mannered than Fierce, and she likes a good, challenging battle. But, when she uses her splashdown, she ends up shattering the ground on impact. What? I don't want to fight that splashdown. Also, she can jump higher than the average player. I'm not sure how she does it, I would like to know. Last but not least, we have the Eye of Justice. Justice is very focused and logical, making accurate predictions of his opponent's moves. You can also copy and download battle strategies into his mind from other players. Think Army with his manuals, but instead of writing them down, he just downloads them. Okay, we did it. That was the last, at least to date, final arc. What an adventure. I won't be going over Book 15 because the English version isn't out yet, but soon. Very soon. Like I said earlier, I know I'm just talking about the characters, but I feel like the characters are the best part of the arcs. I mean, I guess I could do an extensive breakdown of each book. You know, going into fine detail of everything that happens in each book. But currently that's just an idea, but if the people watching this video want me to do it, who am I to say no? On the topic of future projects, the Splatoon 3 Direct got announced. It's going to be Wednesday, and reaction, maybe? I don't know, that or I could also do a breakdown. But there's just so many other Splatooners doing that I don't find a need for myself to do it. So, maybe. But if the public demands it, I shall receive. But there's no telling when it will be out. That I don't know. Because there is one more project that I have not started on, but I really want it to be out before Splatoon 3 releases, or else the video won't make any sense. Okay, so, back on topic. The Splatoon manga is amazing, but I do have 2 problems with it. Keep in mind these are more like really small nitpicks. I want more serious Goggles, personally. Like, there was a time, Book 2, right at the first matchup with Skull, where Goggles loses the fight, and he just becomes so serious after that. Well, for about 1 page. Still, I want to see this other side of Goggles. I want to see this more serious side of Goggles. The other thing is that I want more information on the teams. Let's take Team Pink, for example. We know a lot about Aloha, but we don't know a lot about his teammates. The Almanac explains some parts about their teammates, but not much. Which is a shame, because I want to know more about these characters. And it's not just Aloha, it's all other teams. But, like I said, these are more just nitpicks. The manga as a whole is really good. Highly recommended. The manga brought many firsts for me. It was the first book that I willingly read. It was the first manga I ever read. It was also the first time I ever thought about cosplaying. Which is weird, because I've never been to one of those events before. Specifically cosplaying as Ryder. Or not, no. Not Ryder, Skull. Skull specifically because of the Carver Roller. Looking around the Dynamo Roller would be pretty heavy after a while. Also, fan art. There's a lot of fan art out there of the manga. And I'm really glad about that, because it shows that I'm not the only one enjoying this great series. There's this video by Octo, and I have the link in the description, so I recommend it. So, to the people who somehow made it all the way to the end of this video, I have a treat for you. Bloopers! Because I like bloopers, we're only human. He is kind-hearted though, once you get to know, come on! He brings Goggles along for the adventure, and together they meant to, come on. In fact, as soon as Team Emperor score, dang it, Emperor. Besides that, it doesn't really differ from the actual, come on. In fact, the only person besides Blue Team that gives Ryder... God dang it. The Emperor, on the other hand, is a very likable character. He's the come on. The Emperor, on the other hand... It's not just... Yeah, especially in some of the later books where he just appears... dang it! It is revealed that the kid's thinking...